Hello friends, Megha here. Welcome back to my tutorial series on Android. The link to the tutorial playlist and previous videos are in the description box below. To get an introduction to the Simple Counter app, you can watch the first video in the series. In the last two sessions, we learned how to add text view to our Simple Counter app. In this session, we will add both these increment and decrement buttons in our app. For this also, I have divided the process into 5 steps. First, add plus button to the activity main.xml file. Next, add button object to main activity.java file. Third, add reference to the XML button to the button object. Fourth, add the second button minus using steps 1 to 3. And last, adding actions to both the buttons. In this session, we will implement steps 1 to 4. Let's move back to the Android Studio. If you recall, we learned how to add text views in the previous two sessions. We added text view in an activity main.xml file, then created an object for this text view in main activity.java file. Linked both of them using the find view by ID method. Let's run the app once more before we add the buttons. Click on Run. Choose the emulator whichever you have created and wait for the emulator to open. Once the emulator opens, the app runs and you can see 8 displayed in the app. This is the text view which we added in the last sessions. Now we want this text view to display 0 and not 8. So we comment the setText method in the main activity. Now run the app again. We see the value of text view has been changed to 0. The time has come to add the buttons. The first step as usual is to add the button to activity main.xml file. Open activity main.xml file. Last time we added text view using the text tab. In this video we will add the button using the design tab. Switch to design tab. Click on the search icon in the palette. Right button and press enter. Select this button and drag and drop it next to the text view. In the properties section here, let's give our button a name. By default, Android Studio names this button as button. But we want to name it increment button, so we change it to increment_button. If you see that this button displays button, but we want it to display plus. So for that, scroll a little bit downwards. You see text attribute here. Change the text attribute from button to plus. Now if you scroll some more, there is a link called View All Properties. Click on this link. This shows all the button properties that you can manipulate without writing code. We will make a small change. We will remove the layout weight which is set to 1. Now when you zoom here in the view section, we have a button with a plus sign. Let's run and see how it looks on the emulator's big screen. Again, click on Run. See, now our app has one text view and one button. The next step is to add the button object inside the main activity.java file. So we open main activity.java file and create the object increment button of button type. Make sure to add the import statement for button. You can do this by clicking Option and Enter together in Mac or Alt and Enter in Windows. Next, in the onCreate method, we link this increment button variable to the button in the XML by using the find view by ID method. For that, you write increment button equal to find view by ID brackets r.id.increment button bracket close. We see an error. This error shows button required and found view. This happens because find view by ID method returns a view object. But we are storing that view object in a button object. So we typecast this view object to button and the error vanishes. Let's run the app again. Right now there is no change. Now we will add the second minus button using the same steps. Go back to activity main.xml file. Select the button from palette and drag and drop it next to the first button. Move over to the Properties section. Change name to Decrement button. Remove the layout weight. Now we can go back to the Less Properties screen by scrolling all the way downwards and clicking on View Viewer Properties. Here change that text to minus. Now you can see in the preview that another button is added. Next, open main activity.java file, copy private button increment button and replace the increment button by decrement button. Similarly, copy this line here, change increment button to decrement button and r.id.increment button to r.id.decrement button. Both of our buttons are now in the code. Let's run and see how they look on the emulator's screen. Click on the Run button. Now we can see that we have a text view and both buttons. But when we click on these buttons, nothing happens. Why? Because we haven't added actions for these buttons. In our next session, we are going to add actions on these buttons so that the value of counter increases when we click on plus and decreases when we click on minus button. Before saying goodbye for today's session, let's have a quick recap of the steps we learned today. The first step was adding plus button to the activity main.xml file. The second was the adding button object to main activity.java file. Then the third was adding the reference to the XML button to the button object. The fourth step was adding the second button minus using the previous 3 steps. So that's all for today. See you all in the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, do leave them in the comment section below.